I had the initial reaction of what? I don't take the idea of this being the 51st state or an American protectorate, an American holiday resort seriously. So on one level, you could take it, here's a property developer looking at a wrecked strip of land, prime site Mediterranean location. There's his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Apparently, I don't know whether he suggested the idea, but certainly has got something to do with this idea, and they put it forward. And of course, universally, the reaction is, this is crazy, this is mad, this can't happen. Except, and this is the point that we need to recognize, except in Israel. And there you are, you've got the Israeli prime minister who's beaming away, with Donald Trump talking about redeveloping Gaza. And apparently, again, I haven't done, deep research, but if you look at Israeli politics, basically what you've got is across the spectrum of Zionist politics in Israel. So from the far right, enthusiastic welcome. Netanyahu, Likud, I've already mentioned. But you've also got Benny Gantz. I couldn't tell you what party he is at the moment. Last time I can remember, it was blue and white. That was some time ago. But the point would be that we can go from the far right in Israel to what is called, at least in the mainstream media here, the center ground in Israeli politics, and you're getting a welcome. So I haven't looked up what the Labour Party in Israel says about this. Remember, the Labour Party used to be dominant by far in terms of Israeli politics. Now it's a very fringe party. Either way, it's been welcomed. And we've got to work out why, if you take a piece of claimed territory as far as Zionism is concerned, why these people are turning around to Donald Trump when he talks about America taking over, building some sort of Riviera resort. Why are they welcoming it? Imagine the situation in Britain that Donald Trump came along and said, well, we're going to take over the Isle of Man or somewhere else, the Isle of Skye or wherever you happen to fancy. You know the reaction, just like in Greenland, just like in Denmark, just like in Canada, just like in Panama, when Donald Trump says, well, we're going to take over this bit of real estate. We're going to make Canada into the 51st state. We're going to turn Greenland into an American protectorate. What's the response? The response is no way are we going to have this. So how comes in Israel we've actually had a welcome? And that is, of course, because they know, I know, you know, that isn't really what the proposal is. The proposal, and this is why it's being welcomed in Israel, is to get rid of the Palestinian people. And if you look at the Israeli media, and I'm talking about the Zionist media, so from Labour on the left of Zionism right over to the far right, what you can read and what you've been able to read for years and years now is this idea of a demographic time bomb in Israel, right? And, right, getting rid of the Palestinians. Remember, this is how the Israeli state was formed, the Nakba. So the idea of a second Nakba is now on the agenda. It's now being readied. It's being legitimized by the global hegemon. That's why we shouldn't just dismiss this plan as mad. It's real. And that's why it's being welcomed in Israel. And note this, what we've had is the Minister of Defense giving instructions to the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, to prepare a plan for the voluntary exodus of the Gazan population. I take the word voluntary as a euphemism for forced. I take it either as a euphemism for starving people, or letting people die, or letting people, what's the word, face Israeli bayonets as they're boarded on ships or planes or forced over borders. That's how I take it. And so the Israeli Defense Force is being given plans to actually deport, as I say, voluntarily. Is it 1 million, 1.5 million Gazans to somewhere I'd never heard of before? And I had to look it up. I just thought, where's this? It's somewhere called Puntland. I don't know if anyone else has heard. I say anyone else. I had to look it up last night. Puntland sounded a bit British. You know, where's Puntland? Is it, you know, is it somewhere that was buried under the North Sea? Is it somewhere that used to be on Doggerland? No, apparently it's an autonomous part of Somalia. And apparently, again, this is me doing last minute research, apparently it's a paradise for pirates. So this is sort of a buccaneer coast where pirates, you know, sally out and raid shipping, you know, take hostages, extract, you know, price, you know, the price of someone's head, and all the rest of it. And so, yeah, one idea is that people will voluntarily move to Somalia. My guess, for what it's worth, who knows, is there's a possibility of either a deal being done or simply a fait, you know, a fait accompli, pushing people over the border into Jordan, or pushing people over the border into Egypt. We don't know, but the point is here that Donald Trump has legitimized the idea of mass exodus, something that, of course, you know, as I said, is freely discussed in the Israeli media. And now it looks like it's just about to happen. Now, whether it happens in the next few weeks or next few months, I don't know, but I fear it's going to happen. And of course, we've got from liberal opinion, this is outrageous. This is simply against the law. We can't allow it. Well, what's happening now with Trump too is the post-World War II international order is being shredded. And so what was considered, you know, completely mad yesterday is becoming, how should we put it, a proposal today. It can become common sense tomorrow. So what do we have in terms of the International Criminal Court? Of course, we have Israel facing prosecution. What has Trump done in relationship to the ICC? He's sanctioned the ICC. So Donald Trump says, we're going to take over the Panama Canal. And people say, well, that's against international law. He says, I don't care about international law. He talks about taking over Greenland. He says, I don't care about international law. I have to say that when it comes to Canada, it's a different kettle of fish. We're not dealing with, what was it, 57,000 people in the whole of Greenland. I don't know how many people live in the canal zone in Panama. But when we look at Canada, what's there, 40 million people? I don't know of any political party yet in Canada that's for unity. But someone reminded me earlier today of England's, what was it called? Rough or um, violent courtship of Scotland. And so what you had, before the union of not the crowns, but the parliaments between England and Scotland, is England using its overwhelming commercial economic advantage basically to sabotage Scotland. And the most, how should I put it, outrageous example of that, famous example, is this Darien colony that Scotland was independently establishing. So I think this was actually Panama. And so you had Scottish troops, Scottish ships, and they were going to become an independent colonial power. Britain didn't want that, and it sabotaged it. And you had the crash of the Darien Company. And what the English were able to do is saying, look, if you vote in the parliament, remember, not universal suffrage, if the elite in parliament, if the representatives of the elite in parliament vote for the unity of the parliaments, we'll bail you out. Well, having put them in the ship, they do the generous thing and would give them compensation. We also know, of course, of the role of bribery and other such techniques. Why can't the United States do something like that? Well, I think the answer is it can. And that's the point. And so, yes, those of us that have been brought up, like me, in the post-World War II international order, in a country like Britain, in Western Europe, in North America, we look at this and we go, this is just impossible. Well, I remember saying the same thing when it came to mass unemployment. For me as a young person, the idea of unemployment under this system, I was told this is impossible. There will be no return to the 1930s. And unemployment went up, what was it, to 250,000. And I was told, not just by people in the Communist Party, but others out there in society, if that happened, there'll be a revolution. It went up to 250,000, went up to 500,000, went up to 1 million, went up to 3 million. There's been no revolution. I can remember, it's there in my brain, the broadcast of Kathy Come Home, there's someone homeless in Britain. It was Ken Loach's film. I think it was a half-hour broadcast. This was a national scandal. But now if anyone told me that there's homelessness in London, I just, well, what do you want me to do? I shrug my shoulders and go, yes, well, come outside my front door. Walk down Tottenham Court Road, go anywhere in London, you'll find homeless people. We've become used to it. It's become the norm. So what was crazy, what was mad, in my youth is now, doesn't even pass a comment. And so precisely, American expansionism. Well, America did take over the Americas from shore to shore. That meant taking over either through purchase or genocide or ethnic cleansing Indian lands, but it also meant taking over Mexican land. It meant taking over French land. It took Russian land, that was Alaska. Why can't it expand? Why can't it take over the Panama Canal again? Why can't it take over Greenland? Why can't it go in for a rough courtship of Canada, establish the Conservative Party in Canada through bribery, through corruption, through all sorts of inducements to become the pro-unity party in the name of a greater America. Don't just make America great again, make it even greater. Why is that impossible? Precisely, I think it is possible. So here you are, you have Keir Starmer looking at this Gaza plan and saying, well, we are committed to a two-state solution. How are you going to deliver it, Sir Keir? when you've got a situation of where the Palestinians are being ethnically cleansed. Already 10% of the population of Gaza, presumably because of they're injured or they've got the money or they've got the family connections, have left. And the plan is, Trump's plan, the plan of the Israeli government is to get rid of at least 1 million, maybe 1.5 million others, and rebuild Gaza as a Jewish enclave that will be joined with Israel, a greater Israel. All one needs to do is to look at what is going on the West Bank now as well. It's being hotted up precisely for the same sort of treatment. We all expected it to be the other way around. So historical accident, that was October the 7th. But the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians, that's gone hand in hand with Israeli colonialism. Remember, it's not South African colonialism. If we wanted to draw an analogy, it's closer to the United States form of colonialism on the continent of the United States. It's closer to Australian colonialism. Get rid of the native people. We don't need them to exploit. They are surplus to requirement. They must go. That is Israeli colonialism. And of course, Keir Starmer isn't going to say that, is he? We've just had the Labour Party purged on the basis of people like myself, Stan Keeble, Moshe Machover, and hundreds and thousands of others who've said Israel is a racist endeavor. Israel is an apartheid state. Israel is pre-programmed, right, for genocide. If you say that in the Labour Party, you get expelled. But that is the truth. And that is something that we need to fight for, to establish our right to say that and say it out loud. But of course, what we need is the alternative. And the alternative, that many people will clutch to is, of course, the old order, the post-45 order. So we've got to go back to the spirit of 45, or the spirit of international rules and all the rest of it. As I said, I think we are leaving that behind. And what is being re-established is might is right. Israel is mighty in the Middle East, but it's mighty because it's backed by the global hegemon, the United States. And of course, the United States is in a position at the moment of where there's no viable alternative. But I would say that precisely under these circumstances, we ought to look at the possibility of challenges to the United States' hegemony. The problem is that we, the left, don't want to line up with an alternative hegemon, i.e. China, stroke Russia, stroke Iran. That would be like us lining up in 1914 with Germany, with the Ottoman Empire, with Austria-Hungary. It would merely be joining another capitalist bloc. That isn't working class politics. No, we actually need to constitute the working class globally as a global power in its own right, a global power that can come to power precisely in Europe, in the United States. Tony Cliff, I don't know whether he originated this slogan or whether he borrowed it, but it's fundamentally correct. And he said that the key to the liberation of Palestine, the key to the liberation of Palestine lies in Cairo. Now, he wasn't talking about the city. He wasn't simply talking about Egypt, the most populous Arab country. He was talking about the working class, the masses. That's the key to the liberation of Palestine, something that's only viable if that movement was led by the working class and had the aim of socialism for the reasons Moshe Machover has outlined. Because we want the solution in Palestine to be as peaceful as possible. We want things to be as voluntary, as civilized as possible. And that precisely becomes possible if we've got a working class in the Arab world that forges its own unity and can offer the Jewish Hebrew population in Israel status of joining the ruling class, as opposed to what comrades in the SWP do, for example, and that is offer them the possibility of becoming an oppressed section of the population under a Palestinian capitalism. So this isn't crazy. In other words, that's my conclusion from looking at these proposals.